Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. You know how this works. We take all these sources, notes, bits of research you send, and we just dive right in. We pull out the key stuff, the surprising bits, basically give you the core insights without you having to wade through everything. And today we're jumping into the world of a figure you might know, or maybe the name rings a bell. Skanda, also known pretty widely actually as Kartikeya or Morrigan. Our sources are, well, they're rich, full of legends, his look, his weapons, how people connect with him, the benefits, and some really, really interesting stories. Ancient and surprisingly modern, too. So let me ask you directly, have you encountered Skanda before? Maybe heard him mentioned as Shiva's son? Or, I don't know, maybe under a different name altogether?
Yeah, it's interesting because Skanda, he's really presented as more than just, a mythological figure. The sources really emphasize him as a divine commander, a force kind of brought into being for a very specific, very necessary job. So this deep dive, it's really about unpacking that, not just who he is, but like what makes his energy so potent, so relevant.
And we're definitely going to touch on some unexpected things. I mean, his birth story alone is wild. And then there's this idea of him teaching Shiva, plus links to Mars and, like you said, real-world impacts that people report even now. It's quite a mix. Okay, so let's get right into it then. Based on all this, who is Skanda, like at his absolute core?
Fundamentally, the sources point to him as the divine son of Shiva, and his purpose right from the start was explicit: destroy the Asura.
The Assuras, so forces of negativity or like chaos.
Exactly. Anything opposing the natural divine order, dharma. That's what he was born to tackle.
And that origin story, wow. The sources describe this situation where the Asuras had this boon, right? Only a child of Shiva could defeat them, and Shiva was, well, often deep in meditation.
Right, they thought they were safe. But the divine energy found a way. Shiva's own immense energy, his ugra, this fiery essence, oja, it was released. And it was just too powerful. Nothing could hold it.
Not even the Ganges River.
Nope. The sources say the Ganges tried, then Agni, the god of fire himself, tried. Neither could contain that heat. So it was eventually placed in this specific spot, a reed bed or shrubland called Sharavana.
Ah, Sharavana. So that's where one of his names, Saravana, comes from.
Precisely. And there, in that thicket, this energy coalesced, and it was cared for by 6 divine women, the Kartikeas, fierce, powerful figures. Their name itself connects to sharpness, like cutting through obstacles.
6 fierce mothers whose name means sharpness, nurturing this raw divine energy that feels, significant. And then the child emerges with 6 heads.
Yes. And then Parvati, his mother, in this incredibly powerful act, brings the 6 heads together, merging them into one being. It's a dramatic start.
It really sets the stage for who he is, doesn't it? This kind of intense, focused power.
Absolutely. It points directly to his primary role, the Lord of War, the commander-in-chief of the divine army, leading the fight against those negative forces. And, like you touched on, the sources suggest we can see those Asuras not just as external demons, but also as the negativity, the adharma we struggle with inside ourselves.
Okay, so this divine general, born from fire, nurtured by sharpness, how is he usually depicted? What does he look like in iconography?
Well, you definitely see the warrior aspect, but there's this interesting contrast the sources highlight. He's also described as incredibly handsome, one called Kumar, meaning a youth, a young man.
Kumar, so linked to youthfulness.
Yes, eternal youth, beauty. Well, some traditions even draw parallels to Kamadeva, the god of love. So it's not just fierce warrior energy. There's this radiant, youthful beauty, too.
And 6 heads, of course. That's a major feature.
Right. And that connects directly back to those 6 Kartikeya mothers. It's not just a random detail. The number 6 is deeply tied to him.
Yeah, you mentioned that. 6 Kartikeyas, 6 heads. Born on the 6th day, Shashti.
Exactly. The sources really dig into the symbolism of 6 with Skanda. Astrologically, the 6th house deals with enemies, obstacles, health issues, things Skanda helps overcome. And maybe even more profoundly, it relates to the Shadrikas, the 6 inner enemies. Desire, anger, greed, delusion, pride, envy.
Ah, the inner battles.
Right. His energy is seen as crucial for mastering those. Conquering the inner negativity helps unlock deeper spiritual potential, things like Kundalini energy.
That's a powerful connection, the outer warrior reflecting the inner struggle. Okay, what about his vehicle? The sources mention a peacock, the Mayura.
Yes, the peacock is his Vahan. It symbolizes victory, splendor. But there's another layer the sources point out that's really fascinating.
Go on.
In some images, the peacock is shown holding a snake. or sometimes even eating it.
Holding a snake, that is unusual. What's that about?
Well, snakes in this context can represent those tangled negative emotions,
Yeah.
jealousy, envy, that kind of thing. And also, more specifically, something called sarpadosha.
Sarpadosha. That's like a karmic imbalance related to snakes, right? Affecting peace or family.
Exactly. Issues causing lack of peace, problems in relationships, sometimes difficulties related to children. So, the peacock mastering the snake shows Skanda's power to help devotees overcome these negative patterns and karmic knots.
Makes sense. A divine commander needs the right tools, too. What are his main weapons?
The sources highlight his primary weapon, especially famous in the South, is the vel, a divine spear or lance.
The vel.
Though in eastern India, they mention he's often depicted with a bow and arrow as well.
Is there a story behind the vel? How did he get it? It feels important.
Oh, absolutely, very important. The sources say the vel was given to him by his mother, Parvati, in her form as Parashakti, the supreme power. This happened on the 6th day of his great battle against the Assuras.
The 6th day again. Wow.
Right, and the vel. It isn't just a weapon he wields, it's seen as Parashakti's power made manifest. It's considered, in essence, equivalent to Skanda himself, an extension of his divine energy.
So people might worship the vel itself, not just Skanda.
Precisely. That's a significant practice described in the sources. People keep a small vel, maybe metal, maybe made from special Korangali wood, and perform rituals for it.
Like what kind of rituals?
Things like a dry abhishekam, a ritual cleansing, but without liquids if it's wood. Decorating it with sacred powders like ashtagandha, kumkum, vibhuti. Offering flowers, food, naivedyam, treating the vel as a sacred presence.
Okay, so for someone listening feeling drawn to this, how do they start? What's the first step in connecting with Skanda's energy?
The simplest way, really accessible according to the sources, is chanting his Ashtatara. That's the 108 names. You can find these online easily. And it doesn't require any formal initiation to start.
Just chanting the names.
Yeah, focusing your intention, connecting through the sound, the meaning of the names. It's a powerful starting point.
And I'm guessing consistency is key. That seems to come up a lot in these practices.
Hugely important, yes. The sources stress that. Doing the Ashtatara chant daily for 48 days, that's considered a mandala, a completed cycle. It's said to really energize the practice and any vel you might be keeping.
48 days, okay.
And 144 days is considered a full, more complete mandala. There are also simple mantras, like Om Saravanahava, which is very popular and also doesn't need initiation. The sources do mention more complex, powerful bija mantras, but they rightly caution that those usually need proper guidance and initiation because they're quite intense.
It sounds like Skanda responds well to strong devotion, maybe even intense practices like firewalking that you sometimes hear about.
He does seem associated with that kind of fierce devotion in some traditions. But for most people starting out, the sources emphasize that sincerity and especially that steady, patient consistency is really what builds the connection.
Got it. Consistency over intensity, maybe? Are there specific times that are better for worship?
Yes, the sources point out auspicious days. Shukla Paksha Shashti is a key one. That's the 6th day after the new moon. Again, linking back to that number 6.
Okay, so let's talk benefits. Why engage with this energy? What does Skanda do for people, according to these sources? What shifts might someone notice?
Well, tying back to his core identity, the sources really emphasize willpower, determination. He helps you cut through procrastination, overcome obstacles, find that resolve to actually do what you set out to do.
So, great for achieving goals, fighting inertia.
Exactly. And he's seen as a powerful protector against external enemies or obstacle shatris, but also just general difficulties that seem to block your way in life.
And you mentioned a connection to children earlier. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, that's quite prominent. Historically, he was widely worshipped for protecting children, especially through their younger years, sometimes alongside goddesses like Shashti Devi. And he's also traditionally invoked by couples who are trying to conceive or facing challenges related to having children, seeking his blessings for fertility and progeny.
Interesting. What else? Any other areas?
Other benefits mentioned include sharpening the mind, gaining mental clarity. There's a fascinating story about a philosopher, Kumari Lapata, said to be an incarnation of Skanda who helped revive Vedic knowledge. So there's an aspect of intellectual sharpness and wisdom. And historically, apparently traders also worshipped him for success in business, for growth, and overcoming competition.
Okay, and the Sarpadosha thing, let's circle back to that. How does Skanda help with those specific karmic issues?
Right. So symbolized by that peacock mastering the snake, Skanda's energy is believed to directly counteract Sarpadosha. These karmic patterns, often seen as running in families and linked somehow to snakes, can manifest as general unrest, lack of peace, relationship issues, or the child-related problems we mentioned. Worshipping Skanda, sometimes through specific rituals at temples known for this, like Kuke Subramanyam, where he's called Subramanya, is seen as a powerful remedy for smoothing out these particular karmic knots.
You know, there's one part in the sources that really made me pause. Skanda, the sun, is also seen as a guru to Shiva, his own father.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, that is one of the most profound and counterintuitive aspects. The sources recount this specific legend, where the young Skanda actually teaches Shiva the deeper meaning of the primordial sound, the pranava, omkara.
Wow. The student teaches the master.
In a way, yes. It signifies that Skanda embodies the guru taught for the principle of the spiritual guides very strongly. It shows that true wisdom isn't bound by conventional ideas of age or hierarchy. Even appearing as this youthful warrior, he holds the deepest spiritual knowledge.
So his youthfulness isn't immaturity, it's more like eternal wisdom, unchanging truth.
Exactly. It challenges our whole concept of what a guru looks like, right? It suggests wisdom can come in unexpected packages.
Absolutely. Speaking of unexpected, the sources had some surprising details about his history. We tend to think of him mainly in South India now, but it wasn't always like that.
That's a really key point the sources bring out. The historical evidence points to incredibly widespread worship of Skanda across ancient India, far beyond the south. We're talking archaeological finds, textual references indicating his presence from modern-day Afghanistan all the way across northern India, the Gangetic Plains, even into Bengal.
No kidding. Afghanistan to Bengal.
Yeah. And powerful rulers like kings from the Gupta Empire Kumar Gupta, Skandagupta, were named after him. His image is found on their coins, suggesting he was a major deity for them, likely linked to their military success. Plus, important astrological texts, like the Brihaparashara Hora Shastra, explicitly link the planet Mars Mangal, the warrior planet, directly to Skanda as its presiding deity.
That is fascinating. Did you know that Skanda worship was apparently so huge across the north in ancient times? Considering the geography of his worship today, that's a pretty dramatic shift over centuries. And it's not just ancient history. The sources share some really powerful modern stories, too, suggesting this energy is very much active.
Yes, there are some compelling personal accounts included. One major example revolves around the Kamakya Temple corridor development. The sources describe how divination indicated a need for legal action, and specifically for Skanda's worship to protect the sacred site.
Protected from what?
From development plans that apparently ignored a vital underground water stream, crucial to the temple's energy. The worship was undertaken intensely, and ultimately the court mandated protection for that stream, requiring scientific mapping and forcing changes to the plans. It was seen as a direct intervention by Skanda. And the sources even mention a historical parallel from the 1950s, where damaging a Skanda shrine nearby reportedly caused a strange illness outbreak that only stopped after rituals were performed.
Wow, that's quite a story. The historical echo makes it even more potent. Were there other examples?
Yes. A few other personal anecdotes. One person described finishing a 144-day practice and then, completely unplanned, ending up at the Palani Temple, a major Skanda shrine, on a particularly auspicious day. There, they met a temple guide whose family had served Skanda there for 10 generations. Just like synchronicity piled on synchronicity.
Incredible.
Another story involved needing specific, rare texts for understanding Skanda worship, and an intuitive friend just happened to share exactly those texts completely out of the blue without knowing about the ongoing deep dive into the practice.
It's like the universe conspiring to help.
Right. And one more quick one. Someone traveling, facing obstacles, started reciting a Skanda mantra. And an old man with a staff appeared, seemed to acknowledge or bless the chanting, and then the obstacles just dissolved. So these stories, presented in the sources, they really emphasize Skanda's speed and directness. When someone is truly sincere and consistent, things seem to happen.
The sources also briefly touched on a link between Skanda and other intense energies like Havana or Vatuka Bhairava, almost suggesting a collective resurgence.
Yeah, a subtle point, but suggesting these protective, sometimes fierce deities might be becoming more relevant again. There was even mention of plans to formally install Skanda's energy Apratishta in future temples alongside 10 other deities.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. We've journeyed through Skanda's fiery birth, his role as the divine general, looked at his symbols, the Vel, the Peacock, his many names.
Explored ways to connect, From chanting his 108 names to more dedicated practices, remembering that consistency seems really key.
Right. And the benefits that boost in willpower, protection, help with focus, overcoming those specific karmic knots like sarpadosha, even blessings related to children.
And we saw his deep historical roots, spreading much further than we might think today, plus those modern accounts suggesting his energy is very much present and, well, responsive.
And maybe most profoundly, that image of him as a guru, teaching even Shiva, reminding us that wisdom shows up in surprising forms, often wrapped in eternal youth.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? A deity so focused on war, on overcoming external challenges, yet also embodying eternal youth, beauty, and holding the deepest spiritual truths.
That paradox is fascinating. The warrior and the sage, all in one.
Which leads to maybe a final thought to ponder. Is the ultimate battlefield he helps us conquer not out there somewhere, but actually inside, within the cave, the guha of our own heart, where tradition says he resides.
Guha, the one who dwells in the cave of the heart. Powerful place to leave it. Thank you for exploring all of this with us today. We really hope this deep dive into Skanda has offered some useful insights, maybe sparked some connections for you.
Yeah, there's always more to uncover, isn't there? Keep exploring, keep asking questions.
Absolutely. Until next time.